This is Jesus Manuel Menegas. I hope you're having a fantastic day wherever you're at. In this video, I'm going to be talking about my family and my family history. It's a very interesting family history, I think, and it's very typical of a lot of Chicanos, Mexican Americans, Hispanics, Tejanos, etc., etc. It's nothing super unusual. I just wanted to share it with you so a lot of you folks out there who don't have an understanding of Chicanos might get better acquainted with our culture and our history, okay? Let me go way, way back, okay? Before Texas was called Texas, it was a part of northern Mexico, part of Coahuila, actually. So back in the day, my family lived here, okay? They lived here on this side, on that side of the border, everywhere from Agujita to San Antonio. My family lived in this region. In fact, in the Texas, Mexican War, my family was on both sides of the battle, okay? So, some wanted this, some wanted that. There's a lot of that going on in Mexico. People are on different sides. And in the United States, we see that too, 49% support this person, 51% support that person. It's perfectly normal. And we don't all agree. That's how it goes, okay? So my family, the Garzas, were on both sides of the Mexican and Tejano wars. In fact, there's a county here in Texas called Garza County, I've been down there many times, passed through on my way to, travel to Colorado and to New Mexico. So there's a history, a long, long, long history of my family, especially my father's side, the Garzas in Texas, okay? My mother's side, the Menas, the Lopezes, they have a long history here too, but they're primarily in northern Mexico, okay? Northern Mexico. There's two phenotypical differences between my mother and my father, okay? My father is essentially what you call a white person, a white Mexican, from a Spanish background. In fact, they even say they might even come originally from the, Holland, Dutch area. And also some people say they're Celtic. I do not know. Some people even say they're Jewish. I don't know. It'd be interesting to find out, huh? So my father's basically white, and my mother is what's called a mestizo. She's a combination of different, ethnicities, okay? She's Spanish, she's indigenous, native, and she probably has some African roots in her, blood in her also. A lot of Latinos have African blood, okay? In fact, one of my sisters married a man who's from South Texas, and his family's from South Texas. They moved to San Jose, and his hair is very nappy, and he has the typical, mestizo African influences, very, predominant in his phenotype, okay? Compared to my father's side, who has red hair, blue eyes, green eyes, white skin, and, looks just like a regular white person. I remember back in high school, back in the 60s, one of my friends, John Hillard, an African American, a very close friend of mine and a future college roommate, came to my house and he goes, "Who's that?" "Well, that's my father. He's white." Noting the obvious, I didn't think he was white. I thought he was just a Mexican, okay? But that's how it went with my father, okay? So my parents, my family, the Garzas go back and forth. My father was born in Coahuila. My grandfather was born in San Antonio. And, the border was very fluid back in the, 1800s, early 1900s. It was very fluid, okay? So my parents, felt at home in both regions. So did my mother's family. They went back and forth and stuff like that. But they, they were very different in their acceptance in our society. My father's family, because they looked white, can go to the theater and sit in the front row, and they pass for white, while my mother's side did not pass for white. Here's an example in Texas. So my mother is going with her future future sister-in-law to the movies. My father's sister, okay? They're going to the movies in Crystal City, Texas. They're in the front, they're in the bottom row. and they look at my mother and say, "Hey, you're not supposed to be here. You're supposed to be with the black people and the Mexicans upstairs." And so they got kicked out and sent again to the balcony where the minorities, people of color hung out. Even my aunt was thrown into that situation, okay? So this was back in I estimate back in the 20s. My mom was born in 14. My dad was born in 7, okay? And so that's their background. So there's a lot of difference how people were treated according to your complexion and if you can pass, okay? My grandmother on my mom's side was a curandera partera. Curandera means she was a folk healer. She had a lot of things she knew about and, cured, had some, understood medicines, all these folk remedies and, et cetera, et cetera. She was very, very interesting. She's also a partera. She also delivered babies, okay? She delivered babies, and she was, during World War II, the government said, "Hey, you can deliver babies to all those Mexicans and black people." I don't know. They said that you can do that for certain reasons, but I'm not going to go into that, okay? So my parents, my father, who moved from Coahuila to Crystal City, when he was a youngster, and my grandfather's grave is in Crystal City, Texas, and it's a little cement slab that somebody wrote his name, and that's it. I went down there and saw it. So my father was a farm worker. He was a field hand. So he traveled every year up north to pick crops and all the way back to pick crops, okay? That was back in the 30s, 40s, okay? So that's what he did for, his pretty much his whole life, but especially when he was in Texas, okay? The weather in Texas during the winter is rather mild. So they picked crops in Texas when it was rather mild. A lot of the spinach crops, called the spinach capital. Crystal City is called the spinach capital of Texas. So when it warmed up a little bit more north, they they get in their car and go move north. And until finally they're in, near the Canadian border, and they're picking crops in the late summer near Canada. One of my sisters was born in Montana, when they were working the fields, okay? So my family moved around. They also went to California, and they liked it, okay? So my Uncle Manuel, they decided, hey, we're going to move the whole Garza clan, my 2 uncles and my aunt, and we're going to move to San Jose. So we moved to San Jose in the mid-40s, okay? My family moved lock, stock, and barrel to San Jose in the mid-40s. They all got full-time jobs pretty much. In San Jose, you can work in the fields. My father worked in the fields all year round, trimming trees, picking the crops, be they beans or, pears or apricots or walnuts, everything. My father did it all, okay? And during the weekends, we helped out, and during the summer, we'd work with them too, and my mother would too. My mother also found seasonal work, working in the canneries. So she got a job at Tri-Valley Cannery on Monterey Road, and she worked there every summer, pretty much, canning pears, peaches, and stuff like that. And it was a mixed bag. She really enjoyed it. She had African-American, Asian, Italian, Portuguese, diverse folks working with her, and she had a lot of friendships, and she really enjoyed hanging out with them, sharing meals. They would have little buffets at the cannery. So she had a good time and a good social life for that, okay? My father, in the meantime, would work, in the fields, and we'd work alongside with him. I remember, on those hot summer days, I would have a Pendleton-type shirt on because the pesticides were so intense. There was a lot of pesticides. The leaves would go like that, and they were like Band-Aids. They were so saturated and iridescent with pesticides, and I would work in the fields, and it was hot, but that's the only way we can protect ourselves is with thick shirts and scarves and hats and masks and stuff like that. So we did that for a long time. In fact, I did a little farm work during the summer, okay? So my family's now living in San Jose. My uncles all have nice jobs, and they're all doing okay. Not great jobs, good jobs, like working in the theaters, cleaning up theaters, et cetera, et cetera. Carpenters. My father is a farm worker. My mother's working in the cannery, okay? So we're all living in San Jose, California, in Santa Clara County. One uncle bought a 3-story Victorian near Santa Clara University. It's worth about $2 million now. They gave it to the daughter, one of the daughters, okay? The other uncle lived across the street. He was a bachelor all his life. And he gave his property to his other, one of the members of that family also. And then my father, when he passed away, my brother received all that property. He sold that about a year and a half ago for $1.1 million. Not too bad, for a property my father bought for $6,000, okay? And then my other uncle lived in a very nice neighborhood, and my aunt, they lived in a very nice neighborhood by Lincoln High School. It's called the University area, and it's got mansions down there, but they live in a smaller house, and that's where the arm and a leg, one of my nieces lives in that house. So that's our family. They're doing pretty good in Silicon Valley. When I go back during the 60s, I graduated high school in 70, but in the 60s I would go visit family in Crystal City, Texas to see how they're doing. And my mother and I would go on a bus, or we go in a car with some other relatives, or, my sister's husband would go down there, and his family go down there and visit family. So we'd go down there, and they are still living in single wides, or basically Quonset huts. So leaving Texas was a great idea. It allowed us more opportunities. So everybody's doing pretty good at my family now. Let me just talk with sister number one. She owns a lot of properties in Silicon Valley and is doing quite well and has a ranch. And when I get my RV, I'm planning to go park it on her property and hang out for a couple weeks and stuff like that. Just down the road, my other sister, they're both very competitive, has a ranch also and a beautiful 3-story house, okay? Then you go down in San Jose. My brother, has a house and has investments. He has properties here and there. He's a real estate broker. And the list goes on and on and on and on. So this is very interesting history. My family's doing very well in Silicon Valley, and I'm very thankful that they brought me there. But what brought me back to Texas? Well, my wife got a job here. I'll be here for a few more years, and then I'm going to move back to where? I'm going to move back to California. I'm not moving back to Silicon Valley. It's too expensive. But I'm going to probably buy a house in Chico, Arcata, or Redding, some small town, and retire down there, my wife and I. Again, we'll be closer to our friends and our family. So my brothers and sisters and I am doing pretty good. I'm not saying everybody's doing fantastic in my family. Some aren't doing too well because of issues that I can't explore in this video. But, the great majority of my family is doing fantastic in Silicon Valley. So if you have any questions about my experiences and my family, feel free to contact me. Please leave your kind and super friendly comments below the description. I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much. And if you have the time, please like, subscribe, and share. Again, I'd appreciate that tremendously. And don't forget to check out my Patreon page. It's patreon.com/JMMGarza if you have the time. From Fort Worth, Texas, soon to be moving back to Silicon Valley. No, I can't afford to live there. Maybe Chico, Arcata, Redding, some small town like that. That'll be perfectly fine in probably 3 or 4 years. It's up to my wife. I want to go now, but she wants to keep on working at the university. Ay, ay, ay. Again, from Fort Worth, Texas, gracias, adios, bye-bye.